Hello, guys.
Really?
Sorry about that. I accidentally pressed the go live button and cut you off mid-stream.
Hey, hello.
No problem.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
All right.
Excellent.
E up.
It's is it Saturday?
It is.
If you like.
It is.
No.
It's not. No. Here we go. Cockney Spock, just to be an awkward bastard as usual. What day is it where you are, Cockney?
Yeah, exactly. Awkward bugger. Has to be in a different time zone. Know what I mean? Sunday over here, we had the market, didn't we? Get with the program.
Indeed. I'm going to mention lockdown because I don't think we mention days anymore. It just seems to be lockdown day. Since I just
every
had a
day's
quick
like Sunday.
Lockdown. Every day's like lockdown. Anyway, the UK, since it was locked down at the end of March in 2020, we are on, just let me have a quick look, 200, since March 23rd, 2020, we are now 292 days into going nowhere.
The 23 Enigma strikes again.
Well, I'm glad you went with the chipper start to the show. Welcome everybody to Happy Joy.
Well, if you start at the bottom, there's only one. If you start at the bottom, I've not even mentioned that yet. Baby.
Yeah.
So
don't forget.
right,
Can I just say though, by the way, I did do my homework. I'm sorry. I thought I won't interrupt. I'll just talk continuously, non-stop. I did do a bit of homework. I thought let's try this thing called listening, right? So you and the Commander Culture on the ones and twos, earlier broadcast number, was it 17, right? And I don't know if did you notice that problem being? Because I noticed at 17 minutes 59 seconds in, a friend of ours, said sheer freaking hubris. And I thought, whoa, there's a fine how'd you do. You know what I mean? It's all right for some, not for others. All the power's gone to his head, isn't it?
Just for the benefit of Commander Culture, one of the house rules, number 4, is never mention that sentence.
Can we modify it? Or that's a great sentence to mock and to satire, and because it wraps up pretty much all of our complaints against our favorite franchises and what's being done to them.
Yeah, she kind of be a catchphrase. Sheer fucking bollocks.
I think that sentence is very, very much of a kind of a generation thing. It's I think it's slowly going to come through to be kind of a focal point of all this. What's going on with our TV programs?
It's kind of a high watermark for. I don't know what you want to call it, Wokesterism in the industry, because it was right, shortly after that whole debacle of a series aired that we had this, mysterious virus of unknown origin that leaked upon us, and all of a sudden the industry shut down, and so here we are, and their last echoing statement is, sheer flippin' hubris, and it sort of rings in all of our ears. At least it does in mine. Every time I see one of their pathetic, worthless products,
they're even trying to cut his signal off. Can you hear that?
Are they cutting me off?
Is that me or you guys? Is that us or?
I heard him fine.
That's you. We're fine. Everything's fine here. How are you?
I think it's my computer. It's, as I said to you the other day, it is so old. It's just
get that
Mac
Mini. Get that Mac Mini.
Exactly. Get that Mac Mini. You nick that computer out of the museum. You want to update it.
Have you used it yet, Commander?
I've started setting it up, but life here in the remote island fortress has been very hectic the last couple of weeks, so I haven't had a chance to play around with it as much as I'd like, and I'm back on my PC, but it will be up and going, and it looks very sleek. And we've talked about it before. I'm not really an Apple guy. I mean, I was in like 1985, but
ahead of the curve.
A little bit ahead of the curve. I mean, it's what they put in your schools, and so you kind of get used to it. But yeah, so I'm going to get back on there.
Cool. We had BBC computers back in the day.
BBC computers.
Yeah, Acorn. Was it the Acorn?
Acorn Electron, son. There's the Acorn Electron. Then there's the BBC, the big brother to the Acorn. I remember.
I had an Atari 800 XL. I had an Atari 800 XL.
I had a Commodore Amiga 500 when I was a kid at home.
Back in the day.
Xenon 2 Mega Blaster. What a game.
32K of memory. We were happy in them days. 12K of RAM, 8-bit monitor, 3-hour boot up with a tape machine. Simple days. We were lucky to have a tape machine.
Happy days, mate.
I like
Happy
it.
days. Happy days. Shall we kind of just get into the topics and then just kind of cock about for the last bit? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Commander. Big week for the US.
Yeah. I don't know how political we want to get or how much we want to talk about that, but certainly the United States has. Well, we've seen. Well, I'm gonna, out of deference for your listeners and the other guests, I'll try to keep it as, fence sitting as possible. But suffice it to say that we've had quite a week. I would say that. I'm trying to think of parallels in other countries where something like this and something this momentous and bizarre.
Yeah, I think you have to look towards
happened.
the African continent for similar sort of banana republic kind of stuff. Really,
Nikolai, Ceausescu of Yugoslavia says, "Hold my beer."
Well, we didn't have any firing squads or helicopters yet, but it's not the 20th. We'll there's still a few more days. That's the other weird thing is that we've still got 2 more weeks before the 20th rolls around or thereabouts, and and so we're all stateside in kind of a holding pattern. And it's been a weird week, and it's going to be another 2 weird weeks, and I don't know what else to say except that it's kind of nerve-wracking at a core level because you take for granted certain political institutions, you take for granted certain basic realities. How a government works, how a society functions. Transitions of power, I guess you could say, are something that we in the United States have always taken for granted, even through our period of a civil war. It was just kind of like, oh, we'll just go our own way. It wasn't kind of this, well, what are we doing kind of a thing. And so it's odd. And yeah, you'd have to point to, Banana Republic level shenanigans to get what we've had, frankly, going back, a while through this whole election cycle, and again, as for Americans, we kind of make a cottage industry out of poking fun at other countries and how, their strange ways. And now all of a sudden the shoe's on the other foot and everyone's kind of looking at us.
I remember sort of the Americans looking at the UK over Brexit and sort of semi-mocking it, and now it's just like, it looks like a walk in the park.
Right.
There you go.
But it takes on a different dimension because I think other speakers and writers that I've been following the last couple of weeks have said is those other banana republics or even Great Britain is not the unipower or the sole superpower in the world that sort of dictates the economic well-being of the world, controls the financial markets, has a vast nuclear arsenal spread around the world. And when you get instability of the kind that we're seeing, combined with sort of the just how do I put it? It's when a giant falls, you don't want to be anywhere near, and it could fall in 360 different degrees directions, and so nobody really knows how this is going to play out.
What do you think is Trump's thinking behind this? Can he just not accept that he lost and go gracefully?
Well, I absolutely shrink at trying to get inside of Donald Trump's head. That's not a mission that I choose to accept. But I will say that there are sufficient irregularities in the election that happened that would lend credence to the concerns of all of the people on Trump's side.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Well, I think what the problem is that we've been told by the mainstream media again and again, there's nothing to see these unsubstantiated claims and blah blah, but none of them have actually been investigated. The courts refuse to even look at the evidence. That's the problem, So let me explain here. And you guys may know, I'm not. I think it's a little different in Britain, but the right in the United States, which is not necessarily to say the Republicans, but the right in the United States is extremely staid. They're very law and order type people, and if they're fine with losing as long as they lose fair and square. Marquess of Queensberry rules and all that. If they lose fair and square, they've never been in a position where the plurality of the American right believes that there's something that wasn't fair and square. And so we get into this territory where we've never been in the United States because like I said, the plurality of the right has never been on this side. The left is more sort of fractious, and they tend to be a little more skittish, I guess, when it comes to being cheated here or being cheated there, or protesting this or protesting that. There's you can go back 100 years and find leftist protests and political demonstrations and stuff, but it's very rare to see that on the right in a unified fashion. So now we're in sort of a twilight zone. We're in unexplored territory where how does it play out when this is coming from the right?
Certainly in the twilight zone. I'll tell you what, Mr. Brown, I want to take your earlier question, and in the interest of political balance, Mr. Brown, I'd like to flip your question. I thought, can we get in the head of Joe Biden, and equally, can we convince
we never
him
come back?
Can we convince him to accept that he won? It's like, hey Joe, you won, huh? French toast, please. You know what I mean?
I just think with how the electoral college system and how voting works over in the United States, it just seems all very confusing.
I'll tell you why.
We'll have none of that proportional representation.
It's a republic,
here.
isn't it? It's not a democracy as such. It's
right.
a republic democracy. So they use.
One man, one vote.
I'm giving you
hubris.
I'm giving you my sort of plain kind of external outlook looking in, I guess. But you have the vote, but then you have these electors who take those votes to the Senate, and then they confirm or say there's something wrong, and to replace the electors if they feel that there's nothing's followed the due process, right? So then they can then choose who won.
Right, and that's
crying out loud.
Well, that's happened in the past. Whether sort of through subterfuge or whether through sort of direct.
Don't fancy yours much.
With the Hillary Clinton thing, that was just more a matter of the Electoral College winning and the popular vote being lost. And that's what Problem Being was talking about, where the United States, and this is where the big, I guess you could say, problem or disconnect comes in, is that we are very, very, very much a republic. We operate by a set of Republican small r norms that have nothing to do whatsoever with democracy. Democracy is sort of
constitutional,
very far from what we do. Yet everyone is told in our country and of course abroad, well, democracy. It's we're the world's biggest democracy, and America's so democratic, and blah 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 blah. And so when the process of the sausage being made is actually sort of pulled back and revealed, it's quite shocking, because many people believe, well, I've been betrayed. This is what happened with the Hillary Clinton voters. Who said, well, she won. And it's like, well, she won what? She won a popularity contest, but she didn't win the presidency, because we have this electoral college. And we learn now, and honestly, I didn't even know how far down this electoral college thing went, because it goes not just to the slate of electors, but then the slate of electors bounces back to the state, and then the states have to certify and send to the legislature. And it's very convoluted, but it's designed specifically to forestall democratic small d action. The founding fathers of the United States were practically petrified of mass movements, mass political movements, because of what they saw being, the English Civil War, with all of that, what they saw going on in France that would later become the French Revolution. And they said, we got to come up with some way to make sure that doesn't happen. And it's worked long enough, but now enough people are sort of acculturated to this idea of a democracy that when they're told, no, that's not how it works, they get very upset. And so we. So
what you're saying is you're obviously, as I've said many times before, I'm thick as shit. So looking at the thick as shit kind of point of view, it seems to me that
sheer fucking hubris.
Listen, I know my lot. Trust me. So it seems to me that all political systems are usually centuries old bollocks, whereas it seems to me the American system really is centuries old bollocks for effectively staying in the same area of politicalness each time. I don't know.
You could look at it that way. The way that I tend to look at it is, and I think problem being sort of mentioned it, is that rather than republicanism or democratism, you're looking at a system of constitutionalism, and the purpose of constitutionalism is for stability. What the founding fathers set out to do was not to create a system that allowed for the greatest equality, certainly not, or the greatest voice or something like that. What they sought to create was the system that would last as stable as it possibly could for the longest period of time, because they believed that stability
roughly 200 years
200 years, yeah, which interestingly enough is the same time period as most nations or like political entities will survive, whether it's authoritarian, whether it's democratic, whether it's constitutional. You can look at ancient Babylon, you can look at the French Empire, and you can see this sort of 200-year stretch, 250 years, and you can say, oh, and then the time's about up. So no matter what they tried to do back in 1776, time just runs out for whatever reason. And I think that I'll go on record saying that whatever system they set up in 1776, we're moving to a quite a different system here coming up.
Right, that's it. I'm in. Right, okay. I like that. Good link, 1776, because I like to talk about specifics, right? Now,
it is good.
Right? But, 1776, right? Something, no taxation without representation, right? Because that was what the mayor was about. If we let you blokes have a couple of geezers in Parliament, this mayor might not have happened. You know what I mean? Right? So, no taxation without representation, blah, 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 1776, you know the rest, right? But, right,
separation of powers.
Yeah, right. I wasn't going there, but I like it. Problem being, see what I did there? Problem being, right, Washington, D.C., the nation's... You always got D.C. written after it. District of Columbia. You know why? It's not a state. You know why? That means everyone in Washington, D.C. gets taxed and does not get represented. If I was them, I'd be going like, hello, what are we? Chopped liver over here, son. State 51, thanks very much. While you're here, Puerto Rico, 52, lovely jubbly. Job done. Know what I mean?
It's interesting, though, that Washington, D.C. is very similar to the City of London. And the City of London and Washington, D.C. are similar to the Vatican.
They're like separate planets.
You've got
their own funny handshakes.
You've got 3 states within states, which are pretty independent from the rest of the corpus. So you've got
air supply.
You've got the Vatican, which is considered the religious capital of the world. You've got the City of London, the financial capital of the world.
Yeah,
and you've got DC, the military capital of the world. So you've got those 3 covered, and they're all in cahoots. That's what it's about.
Oh, the unholy trinity. He's uncovered something here, ladies and gents. If we get cut off in the next 2 minutes, blame Twitter.
You've got the Vatican, the cross. You've got GCHQ, the circle, and you've got the Pentagon, the five-sided thing. So it's all
5 eyes. It is. I didn't make that link before. You got all these little micro states. Is there a reason why DC has not become a fully fledged state? Is there some truth to this micro power state theory that our friend Problem Being is just espoused, if you like?
Well, I mean, no, I think that's a very interesting link. I'd never made the link exactly between those 3 cities but they are very separate from the entities that they purport to control. I mean, individual parishes in the Catholic Church have almost nothing to do with what's going on with, Pope Francis up there in the gilded cathedrals. Same thing with the City of London out where you guys are. And from Washington, D.C., there's a term in America, flyover country, where basically you have this set of bureaucrats that runs the country, whether or not there's a Republican or Democrat in office, and without any regard for the realities on the ground in the country, whether we're talking left or right.
Could they just not run the country anyway?
Well, no, because that's the same in this country, because we we have our elected officials, but we also have the bureaucracy in place, which is there regardless. So they always have to deal with the transitions of power, but they always remain.
Okay.
Yeah, we have that. We have that.
I was just going to say, I don't think it's practical to talk about DC becoming a state, because it's too small. It's extremely small.
Well, so is the Vatican.
Right.
So is the City of London, but they operate on their own rules. They are completely almost independent.
And that's why Washington D.C. doesn't want to become a state, because they're superior to a state.
Exactly.
Right.
But they're a state within a state kind of thing. That's what I'm saying. That they are, virtually independent. Yeah, I mean they're virtually independent.
Ooh.
So, what went on in the during the week with the riots? Do you think that our friend, the president,
which one?
Well, no, I don't think so.
It's a witch hunt. It for me, for what I'm seeing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is a massive concerted effort by the, if you want to call it, deep state, to control this narrative here. If we look at what's been happening throughout the previous year with all the riots going on and all these incitements by members of the Democratic Party, saying that to go out and this is a sort of the right for people to riot and to make themselves heard because this, that, and the other. It's all very partisan. But there was no incitement. He actually said before he got ousted off of Twitter was, "Go home, be peaceful," And the last thing they wanted was that to be seen by anybody, so they removed it. And I think that's incredibly. You got a sitting president. I don't think this has ever happened. To be, and then didn't he come on the official presidential Twitter, and that was taken down as well. That's supposed to be your commander in chief.
I'm still here. No, you're not. Plug.
Yeah. And this is the power of the mainstream media over the sitting president of the United States, the most powerful office in the world,
suddenly
being
outrun
by private corporations.
Right.
This is fascism. This is the mixture of state power and corporation power, and that for me is the definition of fascism.
I'll tell you what, though,
you're right.
Not to give them any ideas.
And you don't bearing in mind that your House of, I think it's the House of Representatives or the Senate, but they actually have the bundle of sticks bound together with an axe. That is a fasci, and it's sitting there on either side of the podium.
They are right
in that house, and I find that exceptionally strange.
It's normal, isn't it? But that's unity, isn't it? In a way, that part of fascism is no bad thing. The unity bit, it's just don't be.
Yeah, but it still represents what I mean.
I know. I thought about that. It's layers upon layers, isn't it? Because as you say, in the context of seeing it in the Congress, people notice. People don't notice it, but you notice it, and you think, "Oh, hang on! Last time I saw that, Mussolini had a couple of those. They're fascists. They're fascists."
And the Romans.
But then you think, but
Commander,
United Sticks, not a bad thing, don't you think, Commander? Yeah, Commander.
Right.
Get the kettle on.
Well, I like that. I think that's a really important point to bring up about the fascies, the bundled sticks that you see there. What that speaks to, I think that basically what we're seeing is two different things. It's kind of just coincidental that we have moved to a corporatist, oligarchic type of system that one could easily. I mean, our president in the 1950s, Eisenhower, called it the military-industrial complex and said, "Watch out, they're going to kill you guys." And as a free country, and sort of this fascist thing, because what that harkens back to is the Roman model. If we want to go back to our founding fathers, they were trying to set up a republic that was the Roman Republic. Reborn.
Yeah, but didn't Hitler use Roman iconography too? I mean, you'd have thought maybe after the 1940s, you might want to reevaluate.
It's ironic. Our dime, our 10-cent piece, actually through the 1910s all the way up through World War II, had a fasci on the back, full with the axe and the bundled sticks. And after 1945, they said, "Oh, we got to remove that. That's not a good look."
In the 19, I think the 19, I don't know when you stopped doing it, but before you guys went to school and put your hand on your heart, there are pictures of kids in
the Roman salute.
With the Roman salute, with the sticking out the arm.
Yeah. See, but it's interesting. Are they inherently bad, or are they? Swastika's not that bad, is it? But it is now. But
I mean, we're talking here about symbols, like ancient symbols, whether it's the Roman salute or the fasces or the, that have been sort of co-opted and corrupted in the last 100 years or so. But I think that, that symbology, we're kind of probably getting a little bit off the topic, but the symbology really isn't connected to here, because the symbol of the American corporatist system is, the Apple logo. It's the Facebook page. It's not one of these sort of ancient symbols that you look at. It's a modern consumerist, materialistic sort of image.
Although the apple could go back to, Callisti, Eris, goddess of chaos.
Sure.
You've got that kind of connection.
Classical.
I think a lot of these corporations know full well what their symbols mean as well.
True. I wouldn't disagree. No. Yeah. It's going to be an interesting ride here. But
what do you think is going to happen in the next 7 days?
I'm kind of actually at a loss for words as somebody, or a loss of ideas, because as somebody who analyzes, political and cultural events as they take place, I'm kind of looking at this and I really have no idea what's going on. It's kind of like being underwater in a whitewater river or something. You just can't get your bearings. But I suspect that President Trump has one or two more tricks up his sleeve. If you will. I think that,
Does he know?
Thermonuclear war.
Oh no! I'm talking about just political.
Shall we play a game?
Yeah, exactly. Tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, the only winning move is not to play. I think
Very good.
If there is anything. Pardon?
Sorry.
Cockney.
Sorry.
If there's anything to the rumors that are sort of feeding the discontent on this side, of the right side about the malfeasance in the elections, which seems to have been repeated in the Georgia special election for Senate.
Well, you had that jump again, didn't you?
Right, the exact same little jump, which was suspicious at the same time. Then there should be evidence of that. That Donald Trump would have that other people don't have. I don't know, from military intelligence or whatever. So I would suspect, that he would be accumulating all of that information and then saying, these guys are not just my opponents; these are actual, we'll use the T word, traitors, because that's been thrown around now on both sides. And then he would present that evidence and then try to continue power. But
so
I don't know.
It's all about power, is what you're saying.
Well, it's about control of the levers of government. I don't think that. Well, yeah, I'm done opining for the moment.
Okay.
But
okay. So, assuming Trump departs,
right?
Biden, what's Biden going to bring to the table?
War. Democrats always bring war with them for a lot of different reasons, but the easiest one is that they're
type of war?
They're perceived as weak, whether they are or not. And so in order to shore up their own base and in order to sort of solidify the moderates, if you will, if you want to call warmongers, moderates, in America they are, then they launch wars. And you can go all the way back to World War I.
Well, if you look at Brzezinski, who was one of the main figureheads behind the Democrats previously, Clinton, Mrs. Clinton, was really upping the ante on a hot war with Russia, wasn't she? And this was Brzezinski's ultimate goal. Obviously, now he's passed away. But I have a sneaky suspicion that, this whole Russia narrative was to keep Russia firmly in the public mind, that the hot war with Russia was the ultimate end goal, and I still think that's the case. I could be wrong, but that seems to me to be where
yeah,
right.
Go on, Cockney.
All right.
No, go on, Connie.
I say in advance, this is a really, really simplistic look at complex geopolitics, right? So I'm going to say straight off the bat before I say it sounds like bollocks, but as a simple guide, it goes like this, right? The Democrats, now let me get this right. The Democrats hate China and they love Russia, but the Republicans hate Russia and they love China. Or is it the other way around?
The other way around.
See?
Yeah.
But there's a truth to, that way round, see?
Well, and then you're going to get my opinion, which is that both parties are more or less in bed with China, and both parties more or less believe that they can score political points by fomenting Russophobia based on ignorance and sort of a kind of a lingering suspicions about them due to the Cold War. Both parties are falling all over themselves to get in bed with China. We see that, the ties to China that come out from the Republican governor in Georgia. Mitch McConnell's wife is Chinese ethnically and has ties to businesses in China. And then, the host of Chinese connections on the Democrat side are just as vast and maybe more so. So, we're talking, about, like you said, complex political issues, but China is very good at pulling strings behind the scenes, and Russia is not very good about defending themselves from things that come at them from all angles, because they're very insular when it comes to geopolitics, I would say. So I don't know, but the point that I was trying to make earlier, and this is an important one because I'm not a pacifist, but I really dislike unnecessary war, and that was what kind of spurred on a lot of people to vote for Trump who wouldn't have otherwise. They saw, like what Problem Being was saying, a looming war with Russia, and thought this is mad.
Exactly.
This isn't something that we want to have to do. And Biden now coming in will. My guess would be that the intentional war would be started with Iran. There might be an unintentional war started with China or Russia or some other major to medium power, possibly North Korea. I don't know, but that's a foregone conclusion. I can guarantee you, Trump is the only president we've had who hasn't started a war in my living memory.
That's right. I agree. I wish I'd said it.
Which drives me insane. It drives me insane
Iran.
to think that you've got these people who just losing their mind over Trump because of the mainstream media. These people who don't seem to be able to think for themselves, jumping on this bandwagon, and it seems utterly strange to me that when you had someone like Obama who had a hot war every day of his presidency, and Trump who didn't, that they can cast these crazy aspersions on his character and focus on his many flaws as an individual rather than what he's actually achieved. And if we're looking
Obama,
forward,
have a Peace Prize. Cheers.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Way, lovely.
It just seems really strange, this utter disconnect. I guess because I have the luck of being on the outside looking in, whereas I guess if you're on the ground looking out, it's always a bit more of a distorted picture. But it seems to me that because Biden represents pretty much the status quo of 4 years ago, they want to get back on track, and they've got 4 years to make up for. So they're not going to waste much time. I think the Russian war is probably very likely. I think a hot war with Iran is incredibly likely. And I think as well, the debt ratio with China is going to be an interesting one, because obviously now we know that China's main food supply has been screwed because their dam broke and their entire food yield got flooded. So they're going to be looking for something, to call back on some of those debts, I should imagine. Now that might have an interesting change on things. They might be thinking, well, we need this debt to be recalled because they're going to need to cover their losses for their food supply. So I would be interested to see what happens next because of that particular issue. What do you think on that?
Debt, interesting, classic. Hey, debt interest? No, he doesn't even.
I got it.
Does he?
I got it. I know he's good. I got it totally. Well done,
he's a comedy genius. Yeah, Problem Being, you're so smooth, mate. I'll tell you, keep at it, son.
How classic textbook, how to take the sting out of a serious point. Well done, Cockney.
Cheers, mate. Well, don't get serious about the.
Could I just say, I'll just say as the host, obviously I've said this before. I was blissfully unaware of all this, and to me, I'm just sat here listening to this and thinking, fucking hell, why can't people just be nice to each other instead of all this bullshit?
No money in it.
No, good on you, mate, though. It's a nice idea. Amen to the idea.
Give peace a chance. What?
Well,
exactly.
Well, here's
yeah, go on, come on.
Well, here's the thing, Mr. Brown. Well, you and I, individual people, German and British soldiers in the trenches of World War I in 1914. We don't want to go out and kill each other. We don't want to go out and steal from each other. We don't want to go out and impoverish one another. We just want to get along with our families, meet interesting people, live a peaceful, stable life. The people who gravitate to power are people with sociopathic tendencies.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can tell you this, having rotated around seats of power, that these are not normal people. These are not people who want to just, get up and mow the lawn and talk to their neighbor and, play, in the backyard with their kids or whatever. These are sort of demented, if I can use that word, types of people. And so their reactions to the crises that come their way and their perception of how they should proceed forward in life and with the power that they've been granted is fundamentally different from how you or I or normal people would perceive it.
Okay.
And so we can't get in their head the way that we'd like to. Yeah.
Okay. So going back on the Trump point that he hasn't started a war. Right. If anything, he's been very kind of, with the North Korea stuff, very kind of, trying to put a olive branch out. Right. Trying to diffuse stuff. Yeah. Is that his mindset of being a businessman and kind of seeing the true picture of what's going on in the kind of business world?
He's a real estate man. He thinks North Korea is prime real estate.
So is that a good thing for the is that a good thing for the kind of world, as it were, that your normal president wants to come in and start a war, which, as I said to you 2 minutes ago, I was just blissfully unaware, and I'm sure a lot of people are.
I can guarantee you that that's what will happen. If Biden comes in, as far as Trump is not. Okay, he's a man who gravitates towards power and wealth, but not in the same way that politicians do. Politicians are fundamentally mediocrities. Okay, they're the C students. They're not your A-list type of intellects. And so they don't think that way. Now you'll get some like that every once in a while, but either they won't rise all the way to the top, or things prevent them from fully being realized. But Trump, being a businessman, he doesn't operate with power in that same manner. Okay, so he looks at it, like problem being said, exactly like a real estate guy. In a real estate deal, everyone has to win or the sale doesn't go through. So he's saying, what can I do to have America win, to have Asia Pacific sort of partners win, to have North Korea win, because they won't go to the deal, to the negotiation table, if they can't.
Okay, well, win. as somebody who is uninitiated like myself, that seems to be better for everybody, instead of I want to go to war.
Well, the reason why he's been so vehemently opposed, apart from being, well, I think it actually does tend to the same thing as an outsider. He's not in the club, and his family have never been in the club ever since his family first appeared in New York. They got up the noses of the New York elite.
Is that part of the problem then?
That is part of the problem. He's not initiated. They were opposed when they first came in with their hotels with the big names outside. The elite of New York were like, common. Very. I mean, we're talking about these elites of New York, and the elites of most of these cities are descendants themselves of European royalty. So these people are connected in that same vein. He is not. So when he comes along, they turn their noses up. He's not included. They are self-made against the odds. So when you think about the level that family had to achieve in order to get that amount of power, that amount of money, and that amount of popularity at the time, they were. It's an uphill struggle. So that's in itself quite an achievement. But when he became the leader of the free world, these people are not just turning their noses up; they're absolutely aghast. And because he's not in the in group, it takes them out of their plan. It sets them back 4 years, and we're not going to allow that to happen again. And
I don't think, as I said, somebody who's in at the ground level, I don't think I've really ever had a problem with Trump. I may kind of disagree with a couple of the things he's done, but I've never really kind of, never.
I think it's a knee-jerk thing. I think I think the media have played it. They've predated on people's emotions and their sensibilities, and I think it's been a very anti-intellectual thing. It's been an emotional manipulation. I think it's been absolutely played to death. I think it's been hysterical. I mean, in the literal sense of the word, I think it's been a mass hysteria, which has been absolutely created and manipulated. I think it's a damn shame that people have lost their minds over this period of time when they could have been thinking much more logically and dispassionately, and just kind of tried to see it for what it was, and to actually just try and look at what's actually being done rather than what they're being told. It just seems to me people are unwilling to engage with their critical functions, that they're going to be swept along on this wave of hysteria for 4 years,
right,
at the detriment of themselves. Because they'd rather screw themselves over on the premise of their perceived virtue than to actually look at it dispassionately and see the good in what's happened in his presidency. Because there has been, and I think it's absolutely strange to me that people are just so emotionally unstable through this period, and not questioning their overlords. And it's like tyranny comes through rapturous applause. They are welcoming in, and this is how it's always operated. This divide and rule. This is how it always was. People will always clamber for tyranny, and that's why freedom is such a hard fought thing. It doesn't come naturally. The human nature always tends towards hierarchy and power, and look for leadership, and to be told what to do. And I think that is something that America, I think, fundamentally was set up to change, to try and create a system where freedom is something that you aim for rather than tyranny, which I think is a natural default for humanity. I really do. And it must be constantly defended against. And that's the thing that we all look to America to prove works. And now it's proving not to be bloody working. Everyone's in a kind of panic. Anyone who's still thinking that is panicking. Because once you see that, you see that, everything being played so beautifully, and it is being played so beautifully. Anyone who's still thinking critically is going, oh my God, what the hell's going on now? And I think that is the great unsaid thing. Well, because you're not allowed to really say. Probably, you'd probably be removed off YouTube for us even daring to think.
You're saying it, don't worry.
Here. Well, and I think that it's such an indictment of our modern culture with all this information at our fingertips, and people are not using that. The people are
scrabbling about in the mud.
They're celebrating their own demise. I mean, this is it. This is it. This is the very thing that we've been worried about for all these years, ever since Bush first said New World Order, right? This is it. This is it. The Great Reset. They're rebranding it as we speak. The new normal. All of these buzzwords, all of these key neurolinguistically programmed words.
Obey.
Yeah, obey. Exactly.
Well, it's very clever propaganda. I mean, the purpose of propaganda is to get people to act against their own self-interest. Precisely. Whether it's buying a Coke, or voting for a dictator.
Well, the Russians knew this. I mean, that's how Kitsch was invented. Kitsch was an art style, a lifestyle, furniture, things. It was all an artifice to make people feel comfortable, even in this horrible tyranny. And Kitsch was a way of making people feel at home with tyranny by dressing it up in these floral patterns and chintz and all the rest of it, and these happy pictures, and and this is pretty much where we're at.
Through the apartment,
it is a
you got a kitchen. My kitchen's kitsch. What? I said my kitchen's kitsch, son of a bitch. What? Sheer fucking hubris.
Kitsch, son of a bitch.
Sheer
that's actually
hubris.
really interesting. But I spent time in the Baltic states, and which had been formerly the Soviet Union. And one of the things that among a bunch of things I did there, was I helped to remodel some apartments. Just as a hobby and helping some friends out. And every apartment that I saw had, like you said, these kind of garish floral patterns. And I asked at one point, I'm like, what is all this stuff? And they said it was the only bright spot that we could get in the whole Soviet Union. I mean, the clothes were drab, the food was drab, the buildings were drab, the weather was drab, but they sold us wallpaper with flowers, and boy,
yep,
that's
Kitsch. If you actually invested, because I actually wrote a paper on this subject, on Kitsch and Kitsch architecture,
kitchens of distinction,
interior design. Yeah, it was all done purposefully to make you feel cosseted. And childlike and infantilized and happy. It was an induced happiness, and I see certain things like certain online thing, adverts and all these other sort of things, toys and subcultures and things like that. Baby Yodas and other examples. These are like corporate versions of Kitsch. And since the corporatist thing is abundant, and now it's more overt than ever, that this is a system of fascism. But they're using sort of the Kitsch formula to make people feel at ease and at home and cosseted by their tyrannical overlords. They don't question it. They want to protect what makes them feel comfortable, and that is the enemy of freedom. If you feel too comfortable, you are not likely to lash out because you want to protect your little womb-like structure that you put up around you, that you don't want to go to war for your freedoms, because you will lose your comfort zone. It's a very clever tactic, and it's something that corporatism and communism have both achieved. Any form of tyranny will try and make you feel comfortable. So that kind of Brave New World kind of tyranny,
Brave New World indeed. I'll tell you what, speaking of Stlinist Kitchens, reminds me of my childhood. Back on the wrong side of the Berlin Wall. You think I jest? I grew up in one of them kitchens. Yes, that's right. I grew up in the shadow of the Stalinist Palace of Culture in Warsaw. I jest not. Dzień dobry. Jak się mówi po polsku? Ty mówi angielsku? Anyway, I can't talk about how we got around the Berlin Wall for legal reasons. But anyhow, I'll tell you, I grew up in that nonsense, and seeing all around me, it is like the boiling frog, isn't it? All I'm saying is, come back, Joe Stalin. All is forgiven. I want to go back there. I feel like I'm there now, but just with more bright colours and internet. You know what I mean?
Well, I could tell you, the time I've spent like in Poland, in Lithuania, and Estonia, they are more freedom loving in the sense of what Problem Being was talking about, in that they jealously guard it, than people in the West, in London and America and stuff, who just sort of take it for granted and are now being lulled to sleep. Mm-hmm. And in Eastern Europe, they're fighting for it. I mean, the protests that are seen there are for, to protect their cultural values, or to, have a semblance of freedom, like you see in Belarus and these kind of places. And it's like, there's some fight in those people's stomach, and we've got none. We're like pod people or something.
Literally with those anti-abortion protests in Warsaw.
No, we're totally gutless.
Right. Well, and that's why
not totally. We remember that.
The British people have been totally gutless since the early 80s.
Well, you know why? No, because we marched against the Iraq War, and Tony Blair went, "Oh bollocks! I don't give a fuck."
Yeah, those just isolated little pockets.
But that's why that was the biggest
we fought for
protest
Brexit
ever.
We've got
right.
No, they don't listen. That's why it was just they don't care. So, that was personally for me. That's the last protest I went to. Now I do this. Here we are. That Tony Blair. Don't get me still looking for those weapons, Tony. You know what I mean? I think Lord Goldsmith was right after all, don't you? What a twat.
I think.
Anyway, can't say any more for legal reasons.
I just think he said yes to something that was fundamentally flawed.
Yeah, a big medal from George Bush. Well done, Tony. Hope you're happy.
It's
thousands, hundreds of thousands on your hands. But anyway, on a lighter note,
didn't George Bush Jr. get a knighthood, which is like the first time a sitting president ever received a knighthood of the realm? I mean, that should tell you a few things.
With what I understand about all that subject, first Gulf War when Bush Senior went all the way in and just stopped at Baghdad. When they stopped, that was where all that kind of started. He should have just gone in and finished the job.
It wasn't convenient.
But in hindsight, you couldn't afford to depose him. That's the thing.
Yeah, the thing is.
Yeah, but they wanted stability in the region so they could get the oil without fuss. So they kept him in as a puppet.
Correct. Yes.
Well, yeah, but then
sounds bad, but it's quite right. Well done, problem being spot on, mate.
They marched all the way in, got some of the Sunnis to
correct.
Uprise.
That was a mistake. Publicly said to rise up, and they went
uprise, and then they just left them in the fucking lurch to be slaughtered. So you can imagine. That's where your terrorist groups, who we all know about, stemmed from the betrayal.
Yeah, and then Obama did it all over again with Libya, and then the job. So Biden's going to do the next thing, and that'll be with Iran. It'll be the same situation.
Well, yeah. I mean, speaking of Iran, because it wasn't the Sunni uprising; it was the Shia uprising.
Sorry, forgive me.
No, it's okay. The Shia though are ethnically different from the Persians, but religiously they're the same. And by wiping out or persecuting that minority in Iraq, what the U.S. was trying to do was to foment discontent between Iraq and Iran, neighbors, and also to weaken Iran generally. This desire to weaken Iran goes way, way back, and that was just one way of doing it. Hey, if Saddam Hussein, after we've killed, wiped out his armies, goes and kills 20 or 30 or 40,000 Shia in Basra, wherever, great. Because then that's going to put, Soleimani and these other sort of, asymmetrical warfare generals into Iraq, and there's going to be, the Iraqis trying to fight back, and these guys are going to be at each other's throats, and that's going to be good for, for Exxon Mobil. But now at this point, for a lot of different reasons, the Iranian boogeyman has sort of played itself out for the warmongers, and they just want to go in and kind of finish the job. Similar in a way to why China's starting to get restless. You guys mentioned, well, China's running out of food, so they might start something crazy. The United States is running out of prestige. It's bleeding away like a sucking chest wound. The economic situation is rapidly deteriorating in the United States, and so they're going to be looking for excuses, which is why I say, if Biden comes in, look for a war. A serious one.
No, that's the funny thing. Literally, as you've been talking, I've got an update on my phone. US airstrikes against militant positions in Somalia. Literally, as you were talking, so you're spot on. News just in, so that'll be.
Wow. You heard it first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, they had to wait for.
Uncanny.
They had to wait for Trump to lose his power, and now because of what happened just the other day, these people have been sitting waiting to strike and to disempower him. Cut him off at the knees, and this kind of thing is the sort of thing that they've been waiting for.
Right?
Here we go.
Yeah, and that's that's going to be a problem because the United States does not have the ability to project its power in ways that it did before, and so it will act increasingly more rash and irresponsibly in order to sort of affect its geopolitical goals until such point as it's not really able to. Kind of like that flailing giant metaphor that I talked about earlier, which is not good for anybody or world stability. Not for our quote allies, like yourselves in the United Kingdom. You should definitely pressure your politicians to not be so eager to jump into our military adventures as they have been in the past, because they won't.
Yeah, the problem is with that now is that they're going to be crawling up Joe's arse to get all the crumbs off the table, because since the Brexit thing, Trump was talking about doing a deal with us, and now he's out. Now, now he's out, Britain's going to be doing absolutely everything it can to kowtow to Joe to get whatever they can get. So I think that is sad territory to be in right now.
Okay, shall we?
For anything will happen.
That was 1 hour. That was 1 hour. Believe it or not, can you believe it?
A riveting hour.
Shall we change the subject to something lighter, or?
Yeah, how about that Star Trek? Whew.
Yeah.
This is the only. Listen, folks at home who are watching this on replay. This is the only channel that will go from political seriousness to Star Trek in one
real
sentence.
Serious topic. Yeah, I'm sure there's an overlap, a parallel with the old culture, but I mean, continuing in my vein of reviewing a program that I haven't watched for a couple of years, but I hear the finals are right, old mare. We're continuing with this recap of the burn. Someone had a bit of a cry, right? It's Sue's on the phone or something. Sue Call, right? He had a bit of a cry because he had a bit of space cake and Southern Comfort. The devil's mix, don't do it, right? And before you say Pablo Hidalgo, the crying monster's shown up, and suddenly all the lithium in the galaxy's blown up, right? Because he's on the same DNA frequency. I mean, really? I mean, you lost me at cry. What?
It is so.
To conclude the thing,
so fucking. Just so fucking stupid. I just. I don't even think you'd get anything like that in Doctor Who or anything, kind of. It's just so fucking crazy.
I wouldn't be so sure.
You wouldn't get that in Scooby-Doo, mate.
Not yet. Not yet.
Captain Caveman had more internal logic than this does.
I heard just to top it off, they played the original Star Trek theme at the end of Discovery.
No, that's such an insult. Good God.
Doomcock's not. I know Doomcock's not even watched the episode yet, but his head.
I stopped. Yeah.
His head is just going to fucking explode all over the wall.
He's going to rant. Well, that's why you see smaller channels. We're getting in there first, aren't we? So with the news, it doesn't make any sense. Reviews of things I've not seen yet. Next week, Tenet. What a load of old bollocks.
I like Tenet.
No, you didn't. You think you did, you nonce. Come on, get serious. Look, the thing is, right, no, I like clever movies that push the boundaries on the stylistic and conceptual level as much as
it was very concept.
Yeah, but there's a fine line between, pushing the boundaries of cinema and
being bollocks.
And a load of potential wanky old bollocks has got nothing there. Time's going forwards and backwards. Really? Is it? What happens when you go to the Kazi? Is that Carrie coming back up again? I don't think so.
Well, did the cat out of Red Dwarf, the backwards episode, he went for a dump, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
That's already been done before.
I preferred it when he's spraying everything. This is man. This is man. This is man. Oh, Red Dwarf, brilliant. Why don't we have more Red Dwarf and less Star Trek Discovery?
There are some more Red Dwarfs in the pipeline, apparently.
Well, there you go.
Look, to be honest with you, Red Dwarf hasn't really been funny since season 5. It went downhill.
Funny. Get the funnies in there.
I think as they get older, and this is not just the actors, it's the writers as well. It's they lose their edge, they lose their comedy teeth. And I think it all becomes a bit safe, a bit sterile, and a bit grandpa.
But it's still pretty good, to be fair.
Really.
I do agree with you. After series 3, where it was kind of effectively rebranded.
No, I think it's season 5.
So funny.
Series 5, I think was because they split up, didn't they? Bob Naylor and Grant.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that was it. That was the end of Red Dwarf for me. I mean, it just started going downhill.
But at its peak, though, must be said, comedy heaven. I mean, it's
fantastic.
a comedy and it's science fiction. That's brilliant.
Commander, you've seen Red Dwarf, yes?
They're all dead.
Yeah, I watched the I guess the original series. I haven't watched anything. If they've been doing new seasons, since 1995, I haven't seen any of that. But the old ones, and I just found it because I like science fiction. I like the whole starship thing, and they did a really clever idea, with it being like this, generation ship and kind of unfrozen, and this breaks down, and then you have this kind of ragtag crew that doesn't make any sense, kind of trying to make light of it or make a life of it. And I just thought this is the great mix of good comedy, kind of like, as an American, I wasn't, as a kid, I wasn't, exposed to much British comedy except for Monty Python and that. And so I saw that and I thought, this is really interesting. This is taking a whole different view of comedy. While bringing in all these science fiction elements that I really enjoy, robots and evolved cats and stuff like that. So, yeah, I wouldn't have much more to comment on it, than that. But I just found it to be good. But redoing it, I don't know. I mean, coming back, I think earlier, Mr. Brown, you and I talked about the X-Files, trying something like that. And it is just, you can't go back and put magic back in the box and reopen
exactly.
it. It's like doing that at Christmas. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to put it back in the box and rewrap it. No, you really can't. Sometimes you get something good, like a couple of those good episodes in X-Files, or a couple of good episodes there in Red Dwarf coming back. But yeah, move on to something else. There's a lot of good ideas out there that haven't been touched, and I think that the creatives, as they've dubbed themselves, should be looking more at that.
Or repurposes, as Gary calls them.
That's what they are now, really. But I mean, that's because they lack creativity, at this point.
It's tragic. I just don't know what's happening. Like, mediocrity is king, and it seems to me, I don't know if it's a generational thing or what's happened, but it's overtly safe. Mm-hmm. It doesn't engage, it doesn't challenge, it disappoints, and everyone's patting themselves on the back. And I cannot, for the life of me, understand it. And I see people in their 40s and 50s who are running these things. I'm thinking that's my generation. Like, but I can pull a great idea out my ass so much better than what I'm seeing on screen. And it just seems so alien, for want of a better word.
That'd be a Klingon
to me.
Yeah. It's surreal, but I think that it's a symptom of what we see larger in the world, where people are, you get ahead by playing it safe. I mean, if you're in a rigid ideological structure like a totalitarian system, like we were talking about in the last hour, you don't get ahead by being innovative. You get ahead by being a toady and kissing up and making sure that you don't rock any boats. And so repurposing is the perfect venue, is the perfect avenue for success. And nobody ever rocks the boat. And the one people that do, I remember there was that writer on Discovery that Nerdrotic talked about, who was kind of edgy, an African-American gentleman, and was fired. Yeah, he got fired for talking about stuff in a writer's room. It's like, come on.
Yeah, N-word.
Yeah,
he himself as a black man, that's just, I mean, talk about being completely self-unaware of these people are. It's astounding. It really is astounding. They are the very thing that they claim to hate. Isn't it always the case?
Burnham is finally the captain now of the Discovery.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, and they've all had
totally earned, of course.
They're all wearing their brand new grey uniforms as well.
Yeah, which look like Yahtzee officer kind of uniforms, don't they? Well, they do. They do.
Where did it all go wrong?
Tracksman. It was Tracksman.
Well, you can't even blame the people that hired. I mean, you got to blame the people that hired Kurtzman. You got to go all the way up, to CBS and Paramount and these guys for being so flagrantly irresponsible with their intellectual properties. I mean, it's like buying a mansion in Maui or Monaco or something and just letting it go to utter ruin. I mean, that you've got a real problem there if you're not cultivating your own intellectual property, and they don't. They chase data driven and algorithmically driven sort of creativity, if you want to call it that, and then put the product out there, and it doesn't matter because again comes back to economics. I mean, the money is just flowing freely. From through Wall Street, through into Hollywood and stuff, and they don't have to, they don't take losses the way that you or I would if we're running a business. They can just paper over it and run on with the next project, which is.
Well, I think I think it must be that these companies are being compensated for their losses by billionaire think tanks who want to push these narratives. It's the only logical thing to me that must be going on, because no company, no sane person would lose their profits or have their profits so drastically slashed by producing such drivel unless it was being funded. It's the only logical thing to me.
That is true. That is true. Absolutely true. But also, I mean, look at it this way. I mean, communists would, right? I mean, communists are purely ideological with no profit motive. So if they're destroying their enemy, whoever that is, whether it's a certain culture or a certain country, they don't need to be compensated. They're compensated by righteousness, in their own hearts, to whatever this woke religion is, or whatever sort of Marxist ideology. That's how I look at it. And they'll just drive their companies down to the ground. I mean, any Soviet automaker kept making autos, even though they were absolutely terrible. I mean, Soviet factories kept making, making left boots for the left foot, but no boots for the right foot. And it didn't matter. They never went out of business. They just kept making absolute crummy product because that's what they were, designed to do. And that's really where we are now with Hollywood. But let's talk about the positives. I see room for hope because I see, smaller independent creators being able to fill the void. Nobody would have ever guessed that the majority of people would be getting their entertainment and even news from, YouTube or channels like ours 10 years ago.
Not this channel.
The Brown Channel, the Wayne Timeline.
All of our channels,
coming
right?
to you soon from Paramount. The Wayne Timeline.
You've got
this week, The Trouble with Eels.
Jelly deals.
Jelly deals, mate.
Next week, Mirror, Current Bun, Mirror. And then after that, season closer, City on the Edge of Whatever, Lambert.
Dagenham.
Dagenham. This time of night, I don't think so, Kirk. Turn the ship around, son. Hey.
Turn the taxi around, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Shuttle, get the black cab shuttle out. Meters running, Kirk. Get in there, son. 15 quid already. Bloody hell, Spot. Let's get down there, sunshine.
15 bars of Latinum already, mate.
Not having that. The meter won't take it, Captain.
She's gonna blow, Captain.
Exactly. Oh, you'll be lucky, son. That's extra. Hey.
Quick, Commander. Have you got your channel up and running yet? Because I've been looking for your channel and I can't find it.
It's not up and running the way I'd like. I have some inaugural videos that I'd like to blast out first, but I have to get my setup going in my secret hidden base.
Lair.
So yes, it's more of an island fortress, but there's a
Tracy Island.
And there's this Scottish guy in a tuxedo who keeps trying to invade the place, and I keep having to throw him off, but he's taking all my girls. But anyway, so no, but you will see my channel up and running very soon.
Bond?
I was just thinking, Scaramanga.
Skyfall was on the other day, where he has the island where he presses the button to effectively get everybody to leave. Is that your island, Commander?
Well, I can't get everybody to leave. I have, the place has to be maintained, and I've got to maintain my cover. Otherwise, it becomes a target for governments of the world who don't like what I have to say. But
$1 million.
Exactly.
You expect me to talk, Hidalgo? No, I expect you to cry.
Yes, just the other day I had to tell Bond that he was a stupid policeman. So the channel will be up to answer that question.
When do you estimate it's going up?
Boy.
This year.
Definitely this year. I'd hope to have it up now, but I've got all kinds of supervillain issues to get through. So by the beginning of February, you'll be seeing video up, and then I'll post all this stuff. Yeah, sorry.
Well, don't apologise. It's ready when it's ready.
But the times, it's like I'm seeing all this stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much to comment about. There's so much to say. There's so much, like to do this, to sit here and chat with you guys and work it all over. But life sort of gets in the way, and evil plots don't unfold themselves. So
that's true.
They don't plot themselves. Yeah.
No.
You got to get out there. You got to get stuck in. I managed to pump out 6 videos today, he said modestly, but I had to cover a very important topic. Return of the Jedi, massive plot holes, so big you could fly a Falcon through. That's right.
Well, let's talk about Return of the Jedi real quick, just since you brought it up. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, but there was something to me always odd as a kid when I was watching when they were in the throne room and Vader and Luke were fighting back and forth, and it kept zipping back and forth between Endor and the throne room. And when Vader is talking about that Luke's feelings have betrayed him, and he's walking
you have a
undercarriage. Right. Now your feelings have betrayed her as well.
You tongued your sister.
Well, if you've ever noticed, when he's saying that, he's carrying in his left hand Luke's lightsaber. He has his own lightsaber in his hand, and he's carrying a second one in his other hand. It's Luke's, and I always thought, what in the world is up with that? Because you see when Luke, if she will not be turned, or if you will not be turned to the dark side, then perhaps she will. And then Luke, jumps up and says no, and starts swinging away at him. But you don't see his hand. You don't see where he was holding his lightsaber, and it apparently
the actress to the bishop.
He was just pleased to see you.
You guys, there was a novelization where earlier in that battle, Vader had force pulled the lightsaber away from Luke, and then Luke force pulled it back from Vader, indicating that his that his power had eclipsed Vader's, that he was able to yank his lightsaber back and then use it to start wailing down. Because I always thought as a kid, I'm like, how is he all of a sudden be able to start beating Vader down when before he wasn't? And it was through the strength, you could say, of the dark side, or his darker feelings, which made it all the more poignant when he threw the lightsaber away that final time and looked at his hand and realized sort of what he was becoming. I always just sort of had wondered, why is he holding this other lightsaber? And it was a scene that was cut, and unfortunately so, I would say. I don't know if you guys knew that. That's
another.
I'm always
top Jedi trivia from the culture.
Top Jedi trivia. Yeah.
No, it's the first Star Wars movie I actually saw in the cinema when it came out. Yeah.
I was
and the last.
And the last. Well, no, unfortunately, it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Star Wars, I guess, what did you guys think of the prequels? Mr. Brown and I have talked a little bit about them, but what are your guys' thoughts on
Infinitely
those?
Disappointing, I'd say. I mean, growing up as a kid with the toys, and being completely engrossed in that universe. When the prequels came out, and it was all this sort of, Phantom Menace was all about these politics and this goofy, I don't know, analog for an Uncle Tom. It was just woohoo. No, look, that really wasn't Star Wars for me. It just felt so flat, like it was a parody of itself at that point. And and you know, all the way up to Vader's creation. No,
Yeah,
it just made my toes curl from start to finish. There's some good bits in there. Christopher Lee and Yoda, that was good. But it was just a CGI mess and really quite boring for me. And as for the sequel as well, I mean, no point even going there.
I think
that's how I feel about it.
No, spot on with the prequels, but purely from a script writing perspective, I like the way that they make a complete nonsense of episodes 4, 5, and 6, showing that Lucas has not thought it through at all. E.g., the aforementioned, 3PO spending about 9 years on the Lars homestead. So therefore, Star Wars Episode 4, Uncle Owen should be going, 3PO, it's you! Oh, what are the odds? What are you doing here, mate? Bloody hell! Oh, Baru, look, it's 3PO! Having a party!
R2D2. Wow, I haven't seen you in forever.
Exactly. I don't remember owning a droid before. So yeah, good from a plot perspective. Just watch episodes 3 and 4.
And that whole stupid last minute. Oh, wipe the droid's memory. You know.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter because Uncle Ben is still going to remember. You can't wipe his memory.
He's not a droid, is he? Whole thing's nonsense.
Or is he?
So yeah, exactly. Wow, there you go. See, 1,500 new plot holes.
Oh yeah,
a skin job on nice. He slipped it in there. Indeed. 4 years, I figured. Aunt Beru said, hey, he must have been a Nexus 7. Nexus 11 goes all the way up, you know. Most Nexuses, they only go up to 10. My Nexus goes up to 11, you know what I mean? It's the best Nexus. The loudest Nexus. The most rock and roll Nexus.
I just think the films were just very, very disappointing. I know, obviously,
Planet of the Apes?
I know the films are obviously. Some people go, well, there are Star Wars films, and yeah, you know,
it was Star Wars to a whole new generation.
Yeah, but
that's something.
It just was too reliant on CGI and just being a little bit pants, really.
And that's the problem, though. Problem being is you say it was Star Wars to a whole new generation, and it was. And at the time, that was what concerned me. I was a teen then, and I had grown up on the Star Wars movies, and I'm like, and they really meant something to me. And I said to myself, how is this? What is this going to mean? And to this day, so you don't have kids that are in their early 20s, their late 20s, going, oh yeah, let's have a whole channel based around Episode 2. A whole YouTube channel. No, nobody cares about that anymore. All it did was sort of confuse the whole story for the younger kids because they didn't have new heroes to rally around and compelling stories and heroics. They just had a bunch of blardy blar. I am the Senate. CGI mess. And then to us, the older fans, it was just like Lucas had sort of walked over our grave. I thought at the time, now, seeing what Patrick Stewart has done to Picard and stuff has given me a new appreciation for Lucas. But at the time, I felt that Lucas was sort of trolling the Star Wars community. Like, haha, you chumps, you support me.
He's done that with hiring Kathleen Kennedy. I mean, that's the ultimate trolling, if ever there was any.
I don't think he knew how bad she was going to be.
Thinking?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a weird one, eh? What was he? Oh, so
if he cared, he wouldn't have done it. He must. How long has he known?
He either knew he was in on it, or he's a muppet. Either way, he
made his money.
Take over. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who cares? It's layers upon layers. Maybe it's a clever plot. He'll buy it back for $1, wouldn't he? Look. Film. I'll take it back, you nonsense. $1.
I still can't get my head around why before he sold the franchise, why didn't he just employ somebody to do, get somebody in and he kind of oversee it? Money wouldn't have been a problem. I just can't understand why he sold it.
For George Lucas, he was never like a business magnate. He never thought of anything as a business. Everything to him was sort of a project.
That $4 billion company aside, but
but you know what I mean? I mean, he didn't really build that whole company. He sort of sat there at the top while more competent people built it under him. Whether it was the special effects crews, the writers that made his movies not suck. I mean, if you've ever seen like the original scripts,
Gary Kurtzman,
right?
Gary Kurtz, not Kurtzman. You're confusing him with Kurtzman.
Oh dear,
he's just Kurtz.
That's the
blasphemy.
Oh dear.
Was that deliberate?
Even his beard was Kurtz. It was a little
I
short.
I think I need to go on.
No,
you're right. So you spot on with the reference, though. No, you're right. Gary Kurtz. Kurtz by name, Kurtz by nature. He made Star Wars. You're right. Even his beard was Kurtz.
Jedi
with a mustache. No, you're spot on, mate. Good reference. Gary Kurtz. Here's to Gary Kurtz. You made Star Wars. One of the hidden heroes of Star. But sorry, Commander. Please continue. Don't mind Mr. Brown. It's his channel, and that's for you. Problem being, put a lip on it.
Bollocks.
Is this your way of telling me I'm talking too much?
Live long and bollocks. No, I am. I'll tell you what, the only thing I don't like about this channel is that bloody Cockney Spock. He's always rabbiting on about nothing. And yet within that, there are deep philosophical and writing truths. But the thing is, makes your head...
Thing is, I can unmute him, which is... I can mute him,
You're cool.
I'm just figuring out how to use the software. And I've just... Oops. The mute button.
Oh, no.
Oh, mate. You're right.
Nice. That was good, that. You should do it again.
Secret of comedy, mate.
Good timing. Sheer fucking hubris.
Timing.
Timing.
Commander, carry on. Don't let that Cockney Spock.
No. I mean, we were just talking about George Lucas, and his. So, I mean, if you look at some guy like I'll use the example of Steve Jobs since I'm looking at an Apple machine right now. Steve Jobs was a guy who who embraced his entire company, his entire product, with a capital P. And it really meant something to him, and he brought it out. With George Lucas, even though the mythos of Star Wars was even bigger than Apple, for George Lucas, it was just kind of an interesting dalliance and kind of a fun hobby. And he would flit over to do Willow here, and then he'd consult on Indiana Jones, and then he'd go off and do independent projects. He was kind of, like one of these disinterested Renaissance princes who just sort of, would have projects going on the side. And then when it came back to Star Wars, because I guess he needed to pay his divorce settlement or something, he's like, well, let's just, come up with this sort of basic framework that I had before. But since I'm the big kahuna now, I'm just going to call the shots. And I don't know if he forced, the shots on everyone, or if everyone just deferred to him because he was.
I think they were too many yes men.
Yeah. And you got a mess. That's why, in looking back in retrospect, I don't really blame George Lucas for the disaster that was the prequels. But what it did is it set the tone for saying canon doesn't matter in Star Wars, and that's why I'll never forgive them, because Obi-Wan Kenobi did not own a droid. Okay, no, there is another. I mean, all of these kind of things that three right, and it's like you can't since you can't reconcile those two things. It sort of just means, well, canon is loose in this universe. Which
is nonsensical by any narrative standard.
Loose canon,
and that's what they're trying to do with Doctor Who. They're trying to destroy canon. I mean, we actually had a writer of Doctor Who actually say he would love to see canon kicked to the gutter where it belongs. I mean, how can you, as a writer, who needs to go from A to B, think, well, canon's just a fucking nuisance? That's ludicrous. I mean, without canon, you have no universe, period. And it just drives me insane that, we've got these people who are in charge of these franchises who are so loose with what canon means. I mean,
I always was more of a insane. Xerox guy myself.
Very good.
Xerox Park. Nicely done.
Xerox machine.
Sorry, Lee, I cut you off there, mate. Sorry.
No, I'm off my perch.
Here's the one that drives me berserk. Why do only fools and Vulcans work? La 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 la. No, I'll tell you what does my night in, though. I'll tell you what keeps me up at night. The fact that Mr. Brown's never been married. I mean, it just don't make sense. It's a glitch in the Matrix, don't you think?
I should have taken the blue pill, mate.
Yeah, I reckon. I mean, just you sure you haven't gone through at least one rock and roll divorce?
I don't think there's any comebacks in the offing, so no.
No, okay. Are you going to get married in the future?
Well, if somebody has me, yeah.
All right, good to know.
Well, you're free.
I'm just saying, it's just trying to build up your fan base, isn't I? Air and mystique for the ladies.
I must admit, New Zealand looks quite good at this time of the year.
It ain't half hot, mum. Ain't half Vulcan.
Listen, ladies, if there's any ladies catching the rerun of this trash, I am available. Send a message through the usual channels.
Can I just as an outsider say, don't refer to ladies as ladies? It just sounds so corny.
Sugar tits to you.
I don't know what the alternative is.
Well, Dolly Bird or sugar tits?
Sugar tits, yeah, I think
I'm old-fashioned. What do you call? Well, women, females, the species,
women.
All right, dogs.
Or owners of vaginas who, like it's...
Lee, stop spoiling yourself. So, Commander, are we going to draw a line on this? Because it's 1.5 hours.
It's whatever you guys are up for. I always have something to say, but I know we like to keep it short-ish for replays.
Well, the thing is, it's 1.5 hours. If you want to bail now, I'm more than willing. If you want to stick around for a little bit more,
that's just
up to you guys.
Normally another half hour, I reckon. See what happens after that. Lovely. Come on, we haven't got stuck into the old Star Trek. Stuck in. We want to solve it.
As I said, episode 3.
As far as I'm concerned, Star Trek is dead. It's been dead since TOS.
Oh boy. Well, I don't know about that.
I'm a hardcore liner in that.
Star Wars and Star Trek, number 1 and 2 franchises.
Watch Blake 7. That'll
Avon's 5.
Avon's 5, as you call it. Yeah. Avon's the best character on TV ever created.
Ding dong, Avon calling.
Yeah, he's great. Aurak.
Yeah,
wake up, Aurak.
I was very upset when the Liberator disintegrated and Zen died.
Spoilers!
What? Spoiler alert! Oh, bloody hell, does it?
Don't worry, he didn't hear it, don't worry. I was trying to get... Sorry. I was trying to get Commander to watch The New Statesman.
Oh, yeah.
And Alan Bastard MP.
Yeah. And The Young Ones.
Oh, yeah, you got to watch that.
Got to watch that.
Because because Commander was he lived in Blighty for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and Blackadder and Space and Father Ted, get them all down, yeah.
Yeah, and Blake 7, and
Blake 7, definitely. Yeah, no, Blackadder is memorized. I've got that one. All 4 of them plus all the specials like implanted in my head.
And the thick of it.
So Lord Flashheart, that's Rick.
From
the young one.
From the young. Okay.
The great.
If you know Blackadder, right? You know Blackadder, what's Blackadder medieval? No, Blackadder Elizabeth I. Elizabethan that would be, wouldn't it?
Second, Blackadder 2. Yeah.
Yep, Lord Flashheart was in there, wasn't he?
Yeah. Flashheart was in 2 and
hurrah!
He was
exactly. Got to treat your woman like a kite. Enter her 5 times a day. Take her temperature back.
He was also in the first series too, where he played the insane guy in the dungeon. I don't know if he even had a name. That I was like, wait a minute, this is the same guy, but it wasn't like
we don't talk about Blackadder 1 very much.
First one. Oh come on, it had
first episode charm. Because he had.
It's still good. So. They're finding their feet. Oh, Peter Cook, he was brilliant.
Wasn't funny,
wasn't he?
Yeah, it wasn't funny.
Well, not technically. But
It's only when they got Elton John to join the writing team did it pick up.
The Black Dagger.
It was historically fairly accurate. As I said, I had a girlfriend who she loved it for all the historical references. She thought it was amazing. I just thought, fuck it, this is not funny. I don't think I laughed once.
It's painful. It is a bit painful to watch. I mean, there are some good, but
there were some, funny parts. But I'd have to go back. I haven't watched it. I watch all the other series, a lot more than I watched the first one. I probably haven't watched that one through in many years or something. But just little bits stick out. It's.
I'm going to convert
I suppose you're going to want to ravage me now.
7. Yeah, I'm going to convert you to Blake 7. Sorry. Well, it has to be done. It has to be done.
I've got written down here.
I got Gary from Nerdrotic into it. There you are.
Where is Blake 7? Is it still on YouTube? Because I looked for it, I couldn't find it.
No, they removed it because they put it on BritBox in the UK, but it's not on BritBox in America, which is fucking stupid. But yeah.
Right.
Look, I think the DVD. If you can play
DVD
Region 2 DVD, get the DVD box set. It's cheap. Just go
Physical
get it.
media, get the DVD.
Yeah, just get it. Trust me, you'll like it.
Mm-hmm.
If you like your Star Trek, it's intelligent as Star Trek, probably even more so. I think it's one of the greatest science fiction shows ever. And it inspired Babylon 5, Firefly, even one of the Star Trek series. They were wanting to do something like Blake 7, so they did Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it was inspired by Star Trek, it managed to re-inspire Star Trek. So yeah, there you go.
Oi, Brown, are you getting stuck into The Expanse yet?
I've tried to watch a couple of episodes this week, but
good lad.
I think I was watching episode 6 on the push bike, training, and I kind of I've bought some in-ear sports headphones, and they always seem like a good idea, but they just keep falling out my ears.
Yeah, I hate that. My ears are not designed for those things. They're so annoying.
Something that you think that seems a good idea, but it just doesn't quite work. And it's like I kind of got halfway through episode 6, and I literally just fucking pulled the headphones off. Like, fuck this. So I need to kind of start watching it again before I
sit down.
Before I
watch it on a
lose
big
the
TV.
threat. Yeah,
don't blame the expense for your headphone choices, mate. Get a decent pair of pins. Start again.
Well, as I said, when I initially watched it, it just seemed. I don't know if the special effects they've had more budget in the recent series. I don't know if it was down to the frame rate of how they were rendered or conversion from NTSC to whatever. It just seemed very Andromeda. Kind of like
I recommend the
do you know what I mean?
Blu-ray,
Like the special effects just looked very kind of.
Get the Blu-ray. Get the Blu-ray box set 1 to 3. It's the best thing ever. It is as good.
Who's the London woman who's one of the main characters?
Dominique something. I got her first name. But that's good.
She's the main character in season 1. The tall, skinny, with the kind of really rad haircut. I just think
Problem Bean, get on your keyboard. Expense Dominique. That's enough.
I just think her acting is just not very good.
Oh, I can't be asked.
It can't be. Look, just trust me on this one.
That's the mantra. The mantra of this channel: can't be asked.
Can't be asked. Exactly, Brown. I'm saying it live on there. Just watch the whole season.
Get over your nitpicks and just get into the story.
Yeah, just get the Blu-ray box set, seasons 1 to 3. Everybody,
don't worry. It's got me intrigued. It's got me intrigued. Don't worry. It's got me intrigued.
Stop flagging it off. Do it. It's the best thing ever. It's not going to get any better than this. It's a bit of a slow burn.
Have you seen it?
The Expanse? No, I have not. I'm waiting until like it's over, and then I can just binge the whole thing. And I'm
no.
I see.
No?
I started. I watched The Boys season 1, and then I'm waiting. I
Excellent
don't like that
series.
whole. Oh, it is. It's great, but I don't like waiting. And I remember when Battlestar
Tired
Galactica
of
first
waiting.
came out, I was like, yeah, I don't care about that. And then somebody told me years later, hey, go for that. And I watched the whole thing all the way through. And I couldn't do it otherwise. Same with Breaking Bad and a whole bunch of other things.
Where are you at with The Boys? Where are you at?
I'm at season 1.
Don't bother with season 2.
Don't bother with.
Saying.
Yeah, do not bother with season 2.
The wife watched season 2, and I figured
Raised by Wolves is another interesting one. That's like really proper intelligent science fiction as well. It's got some tropes in there, but it's I enjoyed it. It's crazy. It's really strange. It's proper strange science fiction. I like that. Yeah, it's good. Raised by Wolves, and you'll be left going, "What the fuck did I just watch?" it's really interesting.
Have you watched all of Breaking Bad then, Commander?
Yes, I've watched it a couple of times.
Did you watch the Camino thingy, the follow-up film as well?
Yeah, that was all right. It was all right. It's all right.
I thought it was good.
The one about Jesse, or I didn't see that one.
It was all right. It was it was all right. It's a shame that they should have made the series straight away afterwards.
Yeah, answer some good questions. I
have started watching Better Call Saul, but
that's
I have
good.
to watch that.
After season 1, I really liked it, but I've just had trouble, getting it in one place and watching it. And so I figure once the whole series is over, maybe it already is.
Season 1 was not bad. Season 2 was pretty good. Season 3, it took a very big step backwards, which was a shame. And then season 4. What season are we at now? We've just finished 4, haven't we? Season 4 was really, really good.
Oh, okay, that's good to hear. Because I love that universe that they created.
So we're waiting for the last season, and I think with how number 4's gone on, I think it could be quite good.
I hope, because there's not much good going on with TV. I was so looking forward to Westworld. Oh my gosh.
God, yeah, that was the biggest disappointment. Oh God,
that should have been the best science fiction show ever done. I mean, based on the old movie, based on Michael Crichton's ideas, and they just
shit the bed. They shat that bed like nobody.
Like a dysentery patient.
Yeah,
in a Jello factory. So yeah,
it was atrocious what they did to that show. I mean, that really set the tone. I mean, that and Game of Thrones. I just don't understand how these people continue working. I really
never
don't
watched
understand.
Game of Thrones. Never watched it.
Biggest shaggy dog story ever.
Started
the most
good,
expensive
didn't it?
failure.
You should watch it. Watch it. It's
I couldn't get past. I couldn't get past the opening titles. That was it for me.
I love the music. But that's
worth a go.
I just don't like dragons.
Well, I didn't. That really put me off watching it, and then I caved in and watched it. Like I caved in and watched Breaking Bad because it wasn't subject matter that I was interested in. But then I watched it, and I was absolutely hooked.
Banshee.
For you Dungeons and Dragons nerds out there are no dragons in Game of Thrones. They've got 2 legs. They're wyverns. I have spoken. Check your monster manual. Check your monster manual, you nerds. It's in there. Wyvern, dragon with 2 legs. There are no dragons.
Okay, well, I'm not really into wyverns.
But then they're dragons. You just said they're dragons with 2 legs.
No, I didn't. Stop twisting my words, Hillary Clinton. Look, you may have won the Listen, right? You may have won the popular vote, but I've won the college vote, and that's what counts, mate. On Mr. Brown's channel. I'll be barricading myself in for the next 7 days, and that's it. You won't get me out. I call on you, the mobs. Come to Mr. Brown's station.
Quickly going back to the.
Don't let them in.
Quickly going back to the voting thing. I can't understand how somebody who got the majority who got the most votes didn't get in.
Here we
I
go.
just can't figure that out.
Because it's not a democracy.
try.
Again,
Don't try, Brown.
It's a
Don't think
republic.
about
It's
it.
a constitutional republic. So they've got these.
Look, the thing
listen,
is, Brown,
Shall I
it's the
mute
same-
myself?
It's a democracy
Yeah,
because
your
you
painters sit
engage.
there and look pretty, mate.
You engage with the process, knowing what the rules are. So if there's participation, you have your votes, but then you have a whole process which you've already agreed to by being contracted, by participating in the voting system. So you know the rules, you know the situation, and you've got all these safeguards in place.
If you
Which
don't
are supposed to be there to
win.
prevent tyranny, ironically.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Ironically.
I'm going to take one for the team and mute myself.
Good luck with that. Well, what do you think, Mr. Brown? I'll tell you what, that story you told me the other day, break my heart. It was like our tune. I could almost hear Simon Bates in the background. Know what I mean? But anyway, let's not talk about it now. But hey, brilliant. Okay, so I'll tell you what, let's have a bit of dead air, just because we don't care. On Mr. Brown channel, we'll do the unexpected, including the one thing you're not supposed to do. Dead air. On 3. 1, 2, 3, oh. Hey! Brilliant. Seriously though, Star Trek, what we can do about it?
Oh, I guess I'm out of jail now. Star Trek? Oh, I'd let it die. Star Trek needs a whole nother, decade or two to sit and, and let a new generation of crazy people. I see that.
Easy.
Yeah, to allow that enterprise to take off again. It needs some extra
Before
time.
they go on to deep space.
This guy's good. This guy is good.
Yes, before they go on another voyage.
Of discovery.
No, you can't mention that. That has nothing to do with Star Trek.
Sheer freaking hubris.
Yeah, I mean,
shall we? Can I? Right, sorry, I'm right. We're going to finish off on this one. I've just decided, literally, just then, we've got 13 minutes, and this is going to be the one and only time that this will be discussed. And this is a serious subject.
Uh-oh.
Are we ready, boys?
No.
Yes, sir.
I love that. Yes, sir. So American. I love that. Yes, sir. If everybody,
sir, yes, sir.
Marine Corps, sir. If everybody said,
sir. The Marine is ready, sir.
If everybody,
the Marine rifle is the man's friend, sir.
Right, carry on.
If everybody in Blighty had that attitude of calling people sir and that kind of deep-rooted respect, it might be a different place to live in. That's what I've always liked about the Americans. It's yes, sir.
They always say that we're so polite, but
yeah.
Like when I worked front of house in the West End, I always found the Texans were the most polite. Everything was sir this and sir that. It was amazing. It was so nice.
I think what is confused with politeness is deference. I find British people to be more deferential, and that's not necessarily politeness. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it's the culture is more hierarchical in the UK, I think, and in America and Texas especially, because wherever there's a stronger sense of like somebody could shoot you if you say the wrong thing, you're going to have a more polite society. Japan is the most polite society on planet Earth, and that's because up until about 100 years ago, you get sliced in half for looking at somebody wrong. And same in Texas, probably even today. But
to be fair, we do have the equivalent in Blighty. When you look at somebody wrong, you get glassed.
Are you looking at my pint? You're staring at my bird.
Right, you look at cunt.
Right. Okay. We've got 10 minutes.
True.
What's the question? What's your serious question then?
Going back to Star Trek.
That's it. Yes.
Why was Star Trek completely and uncategorically destroyed when it was sheer fucking hubris was mentioned. Why was that the death of Star Trek?
Because if you can't get the irony from that bloody statement after what they've been up to, God help you. Like, really. Look, Star Trek was always about a future where all of these navel-gazing foibles of 2020 and 2021 are completely forgotten about, and we've all moved on, and investigating and looking towards the stars rather than our own belly buttons. And I think that is so counter the postmodern narrative that they had to destroy it. I think it was a future in which it would make all their stupid foible nonsense irrelevant, and that's the last thing they want.
But do you think the writers definitely knew what they were doing, didn't they? They just think they were being really, really clever and just sticking fingers up at the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's a boys' club that, and therefore it must be taken down and destroyed. Anything that has any connotations towards masculinity or military or anything like that must be destroyed and feminized with intersectional feminism, because it's a boy's toy and it must be broken.
Because Captain Picard, to a generation, is their hero.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's just there at that desk, looking pathetic and being told to shut the fuck up.
And his apology tour, exactly.
His apology.
Yeah, he has to be admonished because he's a toxic white male.
That's just smashing down a generation. Generations.
That'll teach you for being a toxic white male. That's
yeah.
Well, the biggest irony too is that Star Trek was never a male-centric sort of.
No, it was very popular.
No.
I mean, I knew there were more girls that liked Star Trek than guys. When I was in high school, and or that would admit it. And and it was like they'd read the novels and go to the conventions,
which proves that they've misread the situation completely. That shows you their lack of knowledge, I think, really. But they perceived it as a masculine thing.
I think it's so. I'll piggyback on what you were saying. There is that Star Trek, to answer Mr. Brown's question, Star Trek is about hope. It's about where we can be in the future. It's about a better life.
Yeah,
and these people's goal is to demoralize us. These people's goal is to destroy our cultural foundations. That's why I'm called Commander Culture. I'm not going to get into my own shtick here, but it's like I'm here to rebuild these institutions that made our countries, our people, our societies great. And Star Trek was one of those. It gave us hope. It said, I don't care how bad stuff is today. There might be a Cold War. There might be segregation. There might be nuclear war or something. But we're not going to have that here, because these are the kind of people that we want to be. And so, and I told this to Mr. Brown, we striven to get new kinds of technology, that we saw on Star Trek. And if we can improve our technology based on watching Star Trek, we can also improve our society.
Well, without Star Trek, you wouldn't have NASA,
Well, right. You wouldn't have cell phones. You wouldn't have iPads. You wouldn't have any of this stuff. And so I like to think that, without Star Trek, you also can't have unity. Without Star Trek, you also can't have the brotherhood of mankind. You can't have the milk of human kindness.
Bit toxic there, bit toxic.
Yeah.
Brotherhood.
Well, I'm a toxic white male, so that's part
with a helmet.
But yeah, and so that moment right there where they took the
I am a helmet.
No comment.
Where they took the shell, the skin suit of Picard, not the actual Picard. That was like a LARPer, a Professor X LARPer that was like dropped in, de novo. But like they tried to take Picard and just tell him, how dare you hope for the future? How dare you have aspirations? How dare you have reached for the stars?
Because it's white supremacy. That's what they're saying. The whole shtick for Star Trek is basically a white supremacy in space. And
well, that's how they view it, because everything for them is
it needs to be run by women in order for it to be improved.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you watch the original, if you watch the original Star Trek, there were female admirals and captains and stuff like that.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Oh,
You know.
That's what it is.
Conveniently
Sexist
forgotten.
Pigs in space.
Because it doesn't serve the narrative.
Yeah.
Pigs in space, classic.
Sexist pigs in space. On the SS
I genuinely don't get it. Surely they would
Miss
want
Piggy,
to.
she was in love with the captain, right? That was the main crack.
What's green? What's got five? What's green and what is it? What's the joke?
Don't do it.
All right, I won't do
something rude. No, go. What's green? 5 foot, snotty, and smells of piggy or something, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. What's 5 fingers? Green. Got 5 fingers and smells of pork.
It's a Zen joke. Make up your own punchline. Figure it out.
This is not for
yourself. Bones. Sexist pigs in space. On the SS patriarchy. Hey, let's dig down to that planet using our phallic shuttle.
But Captain Culture's right. Look, I mean,
we're going to penetrate the atmosphere, lads.
We had that former
TV series
Kremlin guy on TV in the 60s talking about how Marxists were going to invade America with the ideology and the main warfare weapon would be demoralizing the culture. And that has absolutely been borne out. And I think that we're seeing that now.
How, just a kind of a rounded question, how did it get to this?
You let it,
you know.
What is that on your watch?
Complacency.
Yeah, complacency. I mean, there's one side that has a goal, that has a mission, that has an objective, and they are opposed to another set of people who don't even know that they're under attack. That they're
it's quite ironic, isn't it? Busy bees, those Marxists.
Well, they are. I mean, you know, there's a, you know, when you study history, it's like these are very patient people, because power is worth patience. And you know, Mao, I mean, Mao started in the 1920s and didn't even take over for 30 years. He had a thing called the Long March where he walked around all of China. You know, these people.
But it was thanks to America that he got into power anyway. It was the OSS.
It was thanks to America that the Soviet Union wasn't
the CIA in its early infancy decided, well, which one do we support? And they supported Mao.
That's why the John Birch Society in America got started, which is a whole other discussion. But yeah, you know, and that now we're getting into all kinds of other stuff. But to answer the question of Mr. Brown, I mean, it's like these people have a goal. Their goal is the destruction of Western civilization, if you ask me. And they will do anything, and they have been doing anything for many years. You can go back to the 1900s. You know, Oswald Spengler was writing about this. You can go back to the 1800s, and you know, Otto von Bismarck is telling people, "Hey, there's a real problem here." You know, you had some very surprised Romanovs in 1918 saying, "Wait,
very surprised,
you know," and,
Romanovs,
and
didn't see that
you know,
coming, did you?
all the way up through,
Romanov's
you know,
the Black Widow.
Natasha, eh?
Yeah, that's why she's pissed off. She's got the skills.
The best thing about the Marvel saga.
I could have been the Queen of Russia.
So yeah, I mean, it's, you know,
I just don't get it, because for me, when I was working, I just want to get up in the morning.
But are you a Marxist?
Go to work.
Yeah, but are you a Marxist?
Buy myself a nice.
But are you a Marxist?
Do you renounce Marxism?
Are you
threaten to be a
Mr. Brown? Have you ever been a communist?
Yeah, are you a Marxist? No, the answer is no. You're not. So you will never, ever understand it unless you have the mindset.
I just want everybody to get on, and we need to go to the stars. That's
Until you're not possessed by an ideology, until you're possessed by something, you will never understand it. You can try to. You can. I mean, there are people who have been.
There's so many different ways to better everything instead of just
but
being
you're talking about
so
a generation
horrible.
of kids who think that it's cool to be socialist because they've never lived under it before. So they, considering that history has been so oppressed or suppressed rather by academia who are busy trying to rewrite it in their own image, you've got a whole young generation who think it's cool, because they don't understand what it represents. They don't understand what it means because they're not taught it.
It would be ironic if I have to move back to Poland to avoid Marxism. There will be a certain irony as
You
I
may
go
have
back
to.
there.
I'd be slaving up the zlotys.
And I'll be building up a wall behind me as well. Build that wall.
I've said many times at my ex-workplace over the years that the politics is just complete bollocks. It's just, as I said many times, it's centuries-old tribalism. And going back to the Trump thing at the beginning, he was a businessman. And I've always said that get rid of the left, get rid of the right, and basically have a businessman running, Alan Sugar.
It makes a change.
Running the country. So
it makes a change from solicitors, lawyers, because they usually end up prime ministers or presidents nowadays. Yeah. They're usually always lawyers. Blair was a lawyer. Obama was a lawyer. A lot of these people. Or tycoons in sense of oil, rail. Those kind of things. They get their billions. They become powerful. They go into politics, or their children go into politics. But when you get a businessman who is so completely left field, in the sense that he's not part of the elites, and not schooled at the skull and bones universities, self-made in the sense that his family was self-made, an outsider that upset the apple cart, because and it's a big club and you ain't in it, as George Carlin rightly said, but it's that really kind of was a chink through the armor.
Yeah.
Well,
and we've seen what happens now. We've actually now seen what happens to someone who comes in from the outside, and that's sending a strong message. What's happened now, that you better not even try, otherwise we will destroy you. This is what the message is now.
No talking politics on your channel. Whoops.
But as I've said, I've always said UK PLC,
which it is.
Like in hyperdrive.
A businessman runs it, so effectively everybody gets a little piece of the pie. Yeah?
That sounds like communism.
Interesting tell.
What, a cooperative?
It's just fucked on it. No matter what.
It's just fucked. Sheer fucking stockings.
It's just fucked, everybody.
We will rebuild it.
Are we? Sorry, Commander. Do you want to just finish off, and then we'll, for our one viewer at home, hello viewer, we'll call it a draw at 2 hours.
Yeah, sure. I know. I think that we've got a lot to talk about. We're as people that observe the culture, and it's good when we're able to get together because we can bounce these ideas off of each other and shoot, what's going on here in the United States, and when America coughs, the world catches cold, they say. Yep. And
I was thinking that at the start, that very saying.
And so coming to a theater near you, this kind of entertainment that we're having in Washington, D.C. and other places, and it's going to get more interesting before it gets less interesting.
The peasants are starting to revolt.
Well, they are, and that's, if anything, if an epilogue can be put on the Trump administration, it's that, like what Mr. Problem Being was saying, he showed that you don't have to take the ticket to sit in the seat of power. You don't have to go along with their screwball system in order to grab the reins. And whether
it's opened a wound that was already festering anyway. The division was already there. What Trump did was just shine a light on it, and now the genie's out the bottle. You can't put it back in the bottle, so it's going to be really interesting. I mean, we've heard over decades now people talking about secession. It never happened. It never transpired. I don't know if it will ever happen, quite honestly. I don't think it will. If it does, there will be civil war, period. Yeah. But that's why I don't see it happen, because you already had secession before in the past and it didn't work out very well. So,
right. Well, so there's a difference between secession and civil war. We can get into that in another discussion. But I'm not as optimistic as you that America will get out of this scot-free. Like without serious problems.
Well, if you go down, that's it. That's the end. That's it. Tyranny will win globally. Right. So America really is the last bastion.
Right. Well, we'd like to think we are. I mean,
I think that is the case, because what's the options? The only other superpowers in waiting at the moment are China and India, and they don't have a very good track record. And Yorkshire
leads. So to finish off, has Trump been a positive or a negative?
Positive.
Problem?
Yeah. Positive, I think. Yeah. I think you have to peel back the surface of bullshit that the media has spun. Listen, I think, could he have handled himself better? Definitely. Should he have said some of the bizarre, silly,
I kind of think that, yeah.
Yeah, we all know that. Look, we know he's a flawed character. We know he's a narcissist and he's all these other things. But did he? I mean, he created jobs. He created a really good economy.
Oh, yes.
He made strides for peace. He didn't start any new wars. He made funding for black colleges.
Friends. Yeah.
For permanent funding for that. All these things that he's been demonized for, I think in time history will, I mean, depending on who wins, who writes the history books, will look back on it with a completely different. Listen, I think he's an angel to many and the devil to the other half. I mean, it's very divided. I mean, it's 50-50. It's polarizing as hell. But subjectively, it's going to be difficult because you're in a mire at the moment. But objectively, I think in the long term, I think he has lit the touch paper here. And I think it's as I said, it's a genie that's been let out of the bottle. People have seen a new way of doing things. I think liberty-minded people are more conscious than ever of tyranny. I think people who see Trump as tyrannical have missed the point because if he was anything remotely tyrannical, they wouldn't be able to have said what they've said about him or Twitter to do what they've done to his account. That doesn't look to me like tyranny. That the tyranny seems to be those who are saying there's nothing to see here. Let's ban the president.
Isn't it?
That's tyranny. So, and anyone cheering that, I feel sorry for you. I really do. That's my
Cockney.
speech.
It's a good speech.
A good speech, yeah. Positive or negative?
You never let us down, my friend.
Try not to.
He's the speech meister. How do you follow that? Yeah, a positive and a negative, depends how you measure it. All the metrics. He sure gets a lot of airtime, doesn't he? I look forward to Biden being woken up.
Media's going to have nothing to talk about now for the next 4 years.
Oi, Biden, the president.
We'll find out in 4 years' time.
All right, I'll tell you what, here's the predictions, and I hope I'm wrong, so it's a win-win. 3 weeks' time, it's going to be President Harris. 2 weeks after that, war in Iran. 4 weeks after that, all that war over Syria. Like I say, hope I'm wrong, win-win-win. That's it.
Well, I think
watch this space.
Ultimately, lose, but
Oh, well, that's just. I was trying to look on the bright side, but
lose.
The black hole of depression opened up by Mr. Brown himself. I mean, I was hoping holding it.
Never disappoint, pal. Keep on wanting more.
Live on air, Mr. Brown killed my hope for Star Wars because I was like, well, I'll be back in for Han, Luke, and Leia. very on straight in
It's
with
just,
the,
mate, it's
not
never going to
gonna
happen. It's
See,
never going to
that's
happen.
it.
I've told you.
That's it. The
It's-
acceptance stage. Bush,
They-
it's over.
they-
Lovely. It's all
they
over.
had-
Doctor Who, it's over. Star Trek.
They
it's over.
had their
Star Wars.
chance.
They
and
blew it.
They did.
So there you go. So you're right. Let's make up our own UIPs, basically.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. We'll call it a draw at 2-10 then, gents. Yes.
Yeah, sure. No more than that. Stop
Commander
it now.
culture.
Always
thank
leave
you
them
for-
wanting less.
Always leave them wanting less. Exactly.
Or
Always
wanting
leave them regretting
something.
more.
Commander culture. Thanks for popping in.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Nice to meet you guys.
I hope
Likewise.
the
Yeah, nice to meet
quality
you,
of the
Mr. Culture.
chats met with your approval.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a blast.
Because I know you're.
He's
pretty
very
up on-
polite.
He's very deep. His commander. I'm
He got us thinking.
shallow. He's deep.
Not at all. Not
Yeah,
at all.
you're a puddle. It's a pool.
Get that channel up and running, mate. Problem being,
Yep.
thank you.
Will do.
Pleasure.
Thank you for getting up in time. I just about made it as well, but there you go.
Yeah.
Cockney, I don't know if it's been a pleasure or a ordeal.
Always a pleasure. Never a chore.
Bollocks.
Live long and be lucky.
All right, be lucky, everybody. We'll see you
Take care.
next time. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.